plus one thing as an underdog. Awesome. What's the next fight we're gonna look at, James?
All right, up next, we've got Abdul Rahman Yakiev versus Rafael Caceria. And this one, I'm going to keep it real brief. Abdul is a minus 3,000 favorite, and Rafael really likes to get knocked out in the first round. He likes to take a couple punches and then cover up at the first sign of adversity and then just allow himself to be finished. So, of course, nothing to do with money line here, minus 3,000. That's ridiculous. We're going to go ahead and we'll still pick Abdul to win by knockout at minus 175. I was expecting the knockout prop itself to be more in the 200 range, so we'll take it at minus 175.
Minus 175, man. We'll take it. Love it, James. It's lights out. Minus 175 to plus 175. James makes us a lot of money. What's the next fight we're gonna look at, James?
All right, up next, we've got Alex Perez versus Asu Almabayev. And based on the last five, Alex has lost four of them. Some of them were to pretty good opponents, pretty good competition, namely Tatsuro Taira. Davison Figueiredo was another one that I saw. But in the fight against Tatsuro Taira, he was doing a good job in the grappling defense. However, Taira had a pretty interesting dominant position on his back that while he was standing that actually like more caused his leg to snap than anything else. So he's had plenty of time to recover from that, but he might have a resistance to trying to focus on defense and grappling or an aversion to it because of that. And I do think Asu, just as of recently, has been a bit more consistent. So we are going to go ahead and take him here. His only loss recently has been to Manel Kopp, which is pretty good. Manel Kopp is up there in the rankings, and he's a pretty good fighter. So we won't hold that against him too much. And we're just going to take Almobayev's money line here at minus 205.
Minus 205. And you're saying, oh, plus money minus 205, minus 250. You can't divide by zero, right? So you got to look at what's going to happen and anticipate the outcome and make what you can make. So next fight we're going to look at, James.
Up next, we've got Nicholas Dalby versus Segid Izagakhmeyev. And Segid, this will be his debut fight. Although he has been part of other reputable promotions in the past, like One, whereas Nicholas Dalby, he used to impress me a lot. He has an incredible pace, stamina, and endurance. Sometimes I think he's clearly out of the fight, but he keeps it going. However, he has been on a two-fight losing streak at the moment, and so that, and based on the fact that we're going to be in Qatar and Segid's last name ends in the letter V, he's probably going to get the win here, especially if it goes to decision. So we'll go ahead and take him to win by submission or decision at minus 175.
Minus 175, I'll take him. That's not bad. That's not bad. And, Qatar is a kingdom. They're with the royal Saudi royal family, and then they paid Pam Bondi, our current Attorney General, $3 million to get out of their sex human trafficking rings that this government's involved in. But now they're in the UFC. We cleaned them up. What's the next fight we're gonna look at, James?
Up next, we've got Bogdan Grad versus Luke Riley. And I was kind of surprised that Bogdan Grad was such an underdog here until I looked at Luke Riley's record. He is currently 11-0 on Cage Warriors, which isn't the greatest, but is
Right.
still a semi-reputable promotion.
He's fighting
And
somebody.
yeah, exactly. Yep. And out of his undefeated 11-0 record, 8 of those have been by way of knockout. Um, Based on experience, I still kind of want to pick Bogdan here, but it's this one's very close. Either one could knock the other out. So a good middle ground. The best prop bet I found for this one was fight to end in knockout, either fighter at minus 125.
Minus 125. Somebody's gonna get knocked out. That's awesome. What's the next fight we're gonna look at, James?
Up next, we've got Tagir Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Horiguchi. And Tagir has a pretty solid record, nothing crazy impressive, but consistent. Whereas Horiguchi, when at first glance, looks like he's debuting in the UFC, but if you actually go deeper through his strength of schedule, he's been and had a impressive run in the UFC before. even facing off against Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, for the belt. And he's since fought for the belt at both Bellator and Risen. So these are both other promotions that are reputable. And he's had pretty decent runs. So he has a lot of experience here. Um, the thing that's the most important to note about this fight is when they were weighing in today, Tagir Ulanbekov, of course, is going to be the home field fighter here.
Right.
And as he was weighing in, the official who was checking the weight scale, they were using like the whatever you call it, not digital scales, when it actually has like the weights on them and whatever.
Right,
And
exactly.
he never let it settle, so we never actually got to see what the weight was. And Tagir had a pretty bad weight cut. He looked like he was suffering up there, and the official just kind of let it bounce around a little bit and then hurry and pushed him off to let him keep going. So he's more than likely coming in overweight here. He likely missed weight, and they're just kind of shuffling that one under the rug. That being said, I really want to pick Horiguchi here as the underdog of plus 190. But for this one, just depending on how Tagir looks on the walkout tomorrow, we're going to go ahead. We'll load the chamber up, look down the sights, but we're going to wait to pull the trigger on this bet until we see how Tagir looks. Because if Tagir comes in looking fully rehydrated and has a massive weight advantage, we're probably not going to want to pick Hyoji. But based on all things being fair as they should be, I'll
Of
pick
course it's
Horiguchi. But
right.
we're going to go ahead and wait to pull the trigger on this one. But do keep in mind, keep an eye out for that fight. Keep an eye out for the Substack so we can update you before it starts.
Definitely. We'll live exit it as well. And I knew something was going on because that came out on my feed. And all I know is the expression on that guy's face. The guy trying to make weight. He looked like he was had some high anxiety there. And he's probably going to be 10 or 15 pounds bigger now that the way you described it. So that's going to be interesting. So the next fight we're going to look at, James.
Up next, we've got Waldo Cortez Acosta stepping in on short notice, replacing Sergey Spivak in the bout against Shamil Gaziev. And Waldo is taking this one on very short notice, and he just fought, what was that, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago,
Wow.
he just fought and won, so he's back in there right away. And yeah, I'm gonna still take him to win here. Shamil Gaziev he's a big fella with a little gas tank and doesn't really have too much impressive skill. His main two moves are kind of throw jabs, back up, lay on top of you, and quit. Those are his four moves that he really has. So, all that being said, we're gonna pick Cortez Acosta here because he just stepped in. I
Alright.
actually didn't see any odds for it on DraftKings yet, so
Alright.
this is another one. We'll have to update you guys beforehand. But I'm also looking from a very possible knockout from Cortez Acosta. So once those odds come out, I'll also make sure we get those over to you guys as well.
You're right, because this is in Qatar. All kinds of things are going in Qatar, right? They gave that rigged plane to Trump for $430 million. So
hmm
I don't know how they flew out there, right? But what's the next fight we're gonna look at, James?
Up next, we've got Jack Hermanson versus Mike Tyke Beck Ortelbright. And at 37 years of age, Jack Hermanson is making the cut from middleweight down to welterweight for the first time in his career. And he also looked drained at the weigh ins. It didn't look like that was an easy weight cut for him. However, Mike Tyke Beck generally fights at lightweight, and he does have a hard time making weight for lightweight, but he's by no means a welterweight size. So he is
Right.
going up a weight class but will be slightly undersized, whereas Jack Hermanson, coming down from middleweight, by the time he rehydrates, will likely have a sizable size advantage here.
Right.
However, in his last fight, he was brutally knocked out by RoboCop,
Oh, okay.
and so having being knocked out in his last fight, which was only about 4 months ago, not
Right.
quite the recovery time you want after a knockout like that. So 4 months and a bad weight cut,
Ooh.
that combination can't be good for the chin. And
Or for the
Orobly
mind
is
too.
a
He
good.
doesn't have all his nutrients because he hasn't gotten all the oxygen back from the last time he got knocked out.
Exactly, exactly. So with all that being said, even though Miktek Orablai can sometimes let things get away from him a little bit, he he's like a train. He just won't stop. Even if you pull him off the tracks, he's still gonna find a way to get back on and keep going. So we are gonna take Mike Tyke Beck Orablai here at minus 185 money line.
Minus 185 money line. Love it. Jack Herman, and I was thinking of that too, that his age and being in Qatar and, how strict they are there and the delicate political nation. Dana White needed people he could trust, right? So they got knocked out. He knew this guy was going to show up at least. All right, what's the next fight we're going to look at?
All right, and then up next we've got Volkan Ozdemir versus Alonzo Menifield. And for this one, these guys are actually very close. This is probably one of the closer matchups of the day. And across the board, pretty similar. The main thing we're going to be looking at here is their recent fights, and one in specific for each of them where they've had a common opponent in Carlos Ulberg, whereas Ozdemir was able to make it the distance and still lost, but lost via decision, whereas Alonzo was knocked out by Carlos Ulberg. He doesn't seem to have as good movement or defense in that regards. So I think we're going to go ahead and go with Volkan Ozdemir here again at minus 200 odds for knockout or decision.
Minus, I'm getting 225, so I'll go 225 money line. Volkan. All right. What's the next fight we're going to look at, James?
All right. Up next brings us to the co-main and then the main event. So I'll go ahead and set the stage here and save the picks for later.
Yeah, the picks are going to be on Substack. Hey, for all the girls that are liking James on Substack, you're going to get those free picks. But they have to pay for their subscription. They're getting free subscriptions. We got to get the paid subscription that pays for themselves. It's only $12.99. $500 lifetime subscription that pays for itself, obviously. So set the stage for the main event and the co-main event that are going to be on around 1 p.m. West Coast time.
All right. For the co-main event, we have got Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Machado Gary. So these are some pretty fan unfavorites here. Not a lot of people that I know like these guys. Ian Gary is getting harder and harder to dislike him, even if you don't like his personality or just any of like his things that he has going on in like his personal life and stuff like that. You can't deny he is very good and he's been constantly improving. Um, he is probably deserving of a title shot coming up here soon. That being said, Bilal is former champion. He was champion earlier in this. I believe it was still at this year. He was still a champ before he lost to JDM. And so this one it will be interesting because they both are proficient in wrestling and striking. And this one's going to be hard to set the stage without giving too much away. But
Right.
really, do I see Bilal outstriking Ian Gary? Not really. Actually, more than that, definitely not. He's not going to outstrike Ian Gary. And then that brings us to the second level. Is he going to be able to out wrestle Ian Gary? Also, probably not. And then Ian Gary, as much as even his early fights were really exciting because he was getting finishes, as of late, it seems that if he'll stand and strike when he can in the beginning, build some confidence up, keep going. But once he starts to feel any sign of adversity, or if he starts to feel like the fight's getting away from him, he's going to take it to the ground and doesn't really have a lot of finishing ability, but he will sure lay on top of you for 4 minutes until the round ends.
All right. Great insight, man. It tells you exactly what's going on, and better yet, how to monetize it. What's the next one, James?
Yeah, up next we've got Arman Sarukian versus Dan Hooker, and this one, these odds aren't going to have anything to do with our bets because we're going to be talking about the winning method for these ones. But I just wanted to make it noted that Arman Sarukian is a minus 750 favorite here,
Ooh.
and I think that's pretty disrespectful to Dan Hooker. I mean, do I think Dan Hooker is likely to win? No, but could he? Absolutely, and the
That's
odds
worth
just don't
$5.
suggest that.
Worth
Yeah,
$5,
and the odds
$10.
just don't suggest that. Exactly. And then, so what we're going to be looking at here is I just don't like Arman. Arman's a little whiner. He expects things to be handed to him on silver plate because he's rich.
Right.
Arman pulled out of a title fight. Every fighter on the roster That's their one single goal in the UFC is to get a title shot. And what does Armin do when he gets a title shot? He pulls out of the fight on 1 day's notice, pretty much ruining the whole event. And instead of pulling out due to injury, when in reality, most likely he just didn't make weight in time.
Right.
So instead of pulling out and then getting right back in there, showing he still deserves the shot, he's actually sat out for over a year. He hasn't fought in around 16 months
Right.
and just whines on Twitter and begs Dana to give him a title shot. And so I just can't respect that at all from someone who's in the top 5 rankings,
Right.
especially in lightweight, one of the most stacked divisions. I just
Right.
don't like that. And as for Dan Hooker, do I think he's going to win? Probably not, but Dan Hooker is one of the toughest underdogs I've ever watched and bet on. In the fight against Jalen Turner, he ate some massive, nasty head kicks. It looked like he was going to be out. If the fight continued for the next 2 rounds, how that first round went, he was surely going to lose, if not be finished. But he was able to fight through everything, including a broken arm in that fight, and still come out with the win against Jalen Turner. And again, as a massive underdog, against Mateusz Gamrot, who has a very similar style to Armin Sarukian, was able to come out, fight tooth and nail the whole time, and come out as the underdog in that one as well. Dan Hooker is just very tough and very punishing on the feet, and he's a much more entertaining and personable, likable guy, in my opinion. So this one will be really exciting just to watch these two pretty much polar opposites go at it. This is one of the few polar opposites fights we get, not only in style but personality inside the octagon. So I am very excited for that main event right there.
That's very interesting, and I'll make sure to get this transcript out because a few corruption angles kind of hit my head. What's going on? And if I'm right,
Uh-huh.
I might put more than $10 on that, plus 450, right? In Qatar, of all places. So, what are your final thoughts before we give him Winston Churchill?
Yeah, final thoughts. I mean, this has been a recognizable pattern in the past, and I've actually made some graphs and other graphical images to kind of showcase this. Whenever we go to these more Middle Eastern, like Saudi Arabia,
Right.
Dubai, or Qatar, there's a lot of fighters whose last name ends in the letter V, and a lot of those fighters win. And so, regardless of our bets, I'm going to be tallying that up just for notes and future purposes, and I'll share that with
Beautiful.
you guys next week because
Definitely,
it's
definitely
a
making
very
that into a
interesting
Substack article.
phenomenon.
Yes.
Is it because of the home field advantage, or is there some behind the scenes judging favoritism? So
Right.
that'll be something we'll take a look at next time.
Behavioral economics and human nature is human nature. So 90% of the information we get for free. Salesmen think short term, businessmen and women think long term. Long term thinking is higher level thinking, and you make a living from your labor, but you make a life from what you give. Thank you for listening, and thank us that we're all making money in the